And all. Congratulations! You've discovered another meta egg, broadcasting live to you from the bowels of our stronghold on the asteroid known as Falco. Welcome to your home for insane fan theory and wild speculation. How you doing, guys? We're pretty excited to be here, and we have our friend Star Wars Santa, long-time friend of the channel, and long-time supporter. I want to thank you for all your support. I know I do it all the time. I gush, but I'm really excited to talk to you today, man.
I am too, Will. It's been a long time, and I love your channel. I love your content. I'm so excited to talk about this with you today. I've been looking forward to it all week. Thanks so much.
Well, I'll let the viewers in on what we're going to do today. Being Meta Egg, we have what you might call a retro card that we can play anytime. So we can go back and look at all kinds of archives of any media ever made. But today, we're going to play our prediction card and try to tell the future of what's going to happen in Star Wars. And there's nobody I like to do that more with than Star Wars Santa here. So, I guess what we should probably do here is kind of mention some of the different material that we're going to be looking at to make our predictions, so to speak. And I've kind of made a little bit of a slideshow presentation for each of these shows. That being the Bad Batch, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew. Now, one of those we're deep into the midst of season 2 for, but the other two, I'll be honest, I think you might have more information on them than I do. And
I know some things.
Well, first off, I'm pretty excited about Bad Batch. A lot of people are talking a lot of smack, I guess is the way to say it, about Bad Batch, but I want to know what you're thinking. Are you excited about it as much as I am? I mean,
I am loving it. And the thing is, I have a hard time sometimes understanding what people want, right? Anytime there's dissatisfaction, it's because what you've gotten doesn't meet what you expected to get. And so if folks are dissatisfied with the Bad Batch, what were they expecting to get? And what is the source of that gap? And for me, I've been looking forward to seeing Omega grow to beyond like a secluded child with on the cloning facility, right? To seeing the world, having a family, figuring out how that family dynamic works, and growing up. And we've seen them in animation with 2 other characters that we were able to watch kind of grow up. One being Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, where she started off as a preteen, kind of self-confident and things because these powers that she had and being able to succeed. And then we get Ezra Bridger in Rebels, who starts off as a bit of a street rat, right? Your video on him being Space Aladdin is absolutely on point. And he was kind of scavenging to get by, and then he's working out some of that stuff as he grows up. So in both cases, we kind of get to see them develop into more mature young adults. And with Omega, you start off with somebody who has been secluded, right? She'd been working for her mother, for lack of a better term, right? Nala Se, who's kind of raised her in the lab, watching all these clones develop. She saw the Bad Batch when they were brought into Nala Se's lab and altered as very young, and then they grew up and surpassed her, right? So she's been there their entire life. She's older than them. And I'm looking forward to, I came into the season looking forward to see, well, who is Omega going to become? How is she going to develop? And then, of course, there's the great big cliffhanger of Boba Fett, right? The Alpha, the Omega, the connection between brother and sister, and seeing eventually where that might come into play. So will she embrace her Mandalorian roots as kind of Boba Fett has? Will she kind of pick up the Bad Batch reins and be one of the family there? And so what we've seen in season 2 to this point is her growing from being a part of a squad, being part of a family. And I'm loving it.
So I know a lot of the complaints that people have had about individuals like Rey and even Luke to a certain extent is that they kind of just magically come into being fully, buffed, so to speak, as far as what their powers are concerned. But I kind of reject people's complaints about Bad Batch being a lot of filler, because in all actuality, almost every episode you're watching her learn. They're like getting a new skill set for her. So like everything has added to her character and her abilities. When she started out, like, as a kid, and then they learned that she had like strategic powers. But now, like, after learning all about tech and learning how to manage like loss and war and all of these technical things too, like everything that she's watching them do as far as like their ships. I mean, in the new season, they have her sitting there like learning the schematics in the first episode when total chaos is happening around her. She's still like at school, so to speak. And that's given us this, that when she does come to full development, there's not going to be any question that it's not deserved or earned, so to speak. And that's why I think I'm excited. And people like, this is the same thing that happened with Ahsoka. People almost rejected the idea of Ahsoka. No, the Clone Wars weren't very popular. They weren't like the franchise carrier when it first came out. It wasn't until much later that it's become like a staple and hardcore fans and stuff. And I expect the same thing to happen to Bad Batch. So I don't know, but how can you convince everybody about their own taste at this point?
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, what was the expectation, right? Like, I get that maybe it's not meeting your expectations. What were your expectations? That's what I'm having a hard time. Did you expect it to be the Clone Wars, and it's not the Clone Wars, so you don't know? I don't know. What is it? No.
Well, I gotta admit though, this newest episode, I was really confused because I thought we were picking up steam as far as story goes, and then the next thing I see is like tattooed like children, like face tattooed. And I know that like Bad Batch takes place in the past, considering where like live action for Disney Plus is, if you consider like Mando and everything. And individuals like Fennec Shan, who have been kind of like de-aged and younger in Bad Batch, but the actor who's playing in the Mandoverse is older. I'm wondering if like, at first I wondered if these school kids would like show up again with like face tattooed, like played by like Post Malone or something. But here we'll go over, because we'll start showing a little clip from the newest episode, because I didn't understand it at first, and I hit you up on Discord, and the next thing you told me was that like it was a reference that I didn't catch. So no, we're not going to all logos. We're going to Bad Batch, Oliver Twist, and then we'll hit static. And now this is what I wanted to talk about right here. This is a great catch. I did not get. I don't know if I'm just not familiar to the story as much or what. But if you've got something to say about this, I want to hear it.
Well, the first thing that caught me as I was live was that the sheriff in Nottingham and tying to the guy with all the money here, this guy, Rocco or whatever his name is. But then my chat, they kept saying, no, this is Oliver Twist. This is Oliver Twist. This is Oliver Twist. And I was like, oh, it's been a long time since I saw Oliver Twist. Like a long freaking time. But look at the clip you have on. Like, The soup. It's the soup. It's right there.
It's right
It
there.
really is. It's. I mean, they went for it, right? Like they made it as obvious as you, pretty much as you can. You go back and you watch.
This is Bad Batch. It's obscene. Like, it's almost a game when you're watching it. I mean, I've written down a couple of, there's hobbits everywhere. Like, Hobbit references the heart of the mountain. Even the beginning when they go into, I can't remember what episode it is, but they go into this temple to find this thing called the heart of the mountain. It's directly lifted from J.R.R. Tolkien, right? But also, like, it's the gates of Moria. So it's like mixing the Lord of the Rings with the collapse of the gates of Moria and the collapse of that temple. But then also, I noticed there was like a little bit of Hayao Miyazaki. I know that Dave Filoni is like in love with Hayao Miyazaki, and the spirit animal and from Princess Mononoke is almost exactly like the big laser beast that's like almost destroys their ship when they wake that up. So let's see if I can remember anymore. Oh, Riot Racing. And even references to old IP as far as Star Wars is concerned, like Phantom Menace references and stuff. But I think that that's very useful because well, everybody was speculating on Omega being force sensitive, and I believe that episode kind of like ixnayed that whole idea. Like,
Yeah. Well, in the episode before this one, episode 9, we had the Lion King lifted directly, right? Like the herds running through the valley and they climb up on frame for frame. It's like spot on there. Even the Russo brothers kind of told us. They were like, they gave a tweet right before the episode dropped. And it's Lion King running down that same
it's fun. It's like a
channel.
Game. It's like a game. But it also
really is.
It also proves to me like there's a little bit of planning going on here. I think there's a lot more planning than people give for Bad Batch and overall, but there's definitely like you can smell writer room all over it.
You can't. And I'm seeing something else too, because like, especially with this episode here, how many of us have seen Oliver Twist anytime? Like for me, it's been decades, right? Long friggin' time. How many kids have seen Oliver Twist? How many? Yeah. So here you get Oliver Twist in an episode of the Bad Batch. Like they're teaching them other literature, right? They're teaching them other movies in the context of a half an hour kids animated show. And I'm underselling it by saying a kids animated show.
Do you think the story really wasn't that close though? I mean, there's themes that go as far as retrieval the episode is concerned in Oliver Twist, but it's almost like a little bit set askew.
Sure, there's themes. That's why I first connected it to the Robin Hood, right? Because I saw like the sheriff of Nottingham. He's holding on to all the wealth. He's living high on the hog. All the people are starving, right? And he's taking from them. And then Robin Hood and the Merry Men come along and they kind of collapse that system in on itself. And you see the same thing here where Rocco, I think that's his name here, he's living high on the hog. He's the Mako, M-O-K-K-O, Mako. He's the sheriff of Nottingham. Omega is Robin Hood.
Right.
The Merry Men are the Bad Batch, right? So those parallels are there, but I think the connection here to and there's not a big difference too in that kind of theme. The wealthy taking from the poor, and the poor uprising, and that's what we get here in Oliver Twist as well. And they gave us the clue with the soup, right? They're just like, this is the story we're stealing this from.
Porridge.
May I have another?
He even sounds like it. The guy looks and acts just like the guy who's got him on the end of a stick. So I like the Charles Dickens, who originally wrote the Oliver Twist, has like little references and word games and the stuff anyways, with like the pulling the shortest straw or getting the short end of the stick when the guy's just sitting there ready to whip his ass and stuff. So Like, but also I feel like they wouldn't put this much effort into the Bad Batch if it was just not as important as people say. And one of the more evidence for that would be how many people Omega's had contact with. She's had contact with senators. People always say, "What has Omega done?" She's been around, man. She's been with Hera. She's been with Senator Organa. She was there at the Senate, man.
So I'm going to drop another one on you, because I was thinking about this as well. And in Harry Potter, through the seasons, we see them befriend, say, the house elves. We see them befriend the giants. We see them befriend the spiders. We see them befriend different groups of people as they go along, right? The story's entirely different. I'm not saying that. But along the way, they're, in essence, building allies. And at some point, when push comes to shove and you have, a big event happen, who is it that line up beside you? Who is it to come behind you and help push you forward? Who is it that's there to help through that critical event? It's all these people's lives that you've affected over all this time, right? So what I see happening here in the Bad Batch is that as well. Like, there's layers to this. There's layers. Like, you go back to season 1 and you go into season 2, and as they're crossing paths with these different people, they're building a reputation. They're building allies. At some point, we're going to have. I'm convinced that this kid that at the end is going to be, or maybe all these kids at the end will be involved in some like rising up.
I definitely smell Stormtrooper rise up. I feel like, I mean, okay, so right now I've got 2 different episodes playing. That would be season 1, episode 5, and then season 2, episode 1. And I've kind of like mixed them together. And they both take place in Sid, who you're watching now's office. And Sid is like their, what would you say, their handler, for lack of a better term. If the Bad Batch is the A-team, she's the one who dishes out. She's like Charlie's from the Charlie's Angels or something, right?
Right.
And so in the first in the first appearance of Sid, which was in season 1, episode 5, they make the point out of the Jedi's trusted her. And her I can barely hear Will, she's saying. So that's all the way up. Do I have to get closer? Maybe I should turn this up. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, you sound great.
Okay, so great. Look, I thought I was being loud. So this is the thing that I'm thinking. That she's got, like, there's all of this Stormtrooper paraphernalia, like stuff left over from the Clone Wars that she got from the Jedis and everything that's in her little office here, where they, like, pan out. And I'm thinking all of this is going to lead to, like, some Stormtrooper revolt. And I believe because we mentioned her relationship to Boba Fett. We know Boba and Omega's stories are going to converge. We just don't know when. And right. I'm thinking, because that proto armor helmet is in the back there. I mean, it's overlooking over their shoulder, like almost ominously, right? Like it's just there, like the whole Bad Batch, like, series is just about that dang armor. I'm certain, because there's no canonical reason for it to be there. That helmet is hers. Because where would it have come from? Why does it look like Boba Fett? And I have a feeling when all of this goes down, or when she gets older, that helmet's going to come off that wall and go on her head, and she's going to lead all of those disillusioned clones that we keep seeing episode after episode. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
well, you make a good point about Sid made this connection to the Jedi, right? She had friends, the Jedi, whatever. Well, she's got a Mando helmet, right? That proto helmet's a Mando helmet. Not only that, but the last time we saw that, and hold on, got it here. Last time we saw it, here. So this is the proto helmet we're talking about. See if I can get it in front of my face. There. We saw an adaptation of this in Rebels, and it was with the
Super Commandos.
super commandos, right? The super commandos had this, but they worked for the Empire.
Right. Is it possible that she trained him though? Because that's on down the storyline. That's like in Rebels, so that's like at least 5 or so years out, something maybe more, I guess, maybe 10 years out. Could she be captured by the Empire and train the super commandos as like?
Will, you're so good, because the super commandos that we see in Rebels, they're not there yet.
No,
they don't exist. Where's the white helmet come from? It's not a super, like, they don't exist.
And it's not the same. The super commandos helmets are different. They
got some red on them and stuff. Like,
yeah,
we don't have that. So I'm thinking, I agree with you. I think that she is going to end up with it, but I think it's going to be much later. And I don't see her being a super commando. I think that helmet's there because of the connection to Boba. They're telecasting to us.
Yeah.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Sending it.
It's coming later, right? Like Easter eggs along the way.
But that's
We're
good.
dropping this.
That's good,
right?
Everybody's complaining about Star Wars not planning out, but we're at least 2 years out of this plan. You know what I'm saying? We've been going for 2 seasons now. I noticed I just finished Willow. There's a lot of shit talking about Willow too, but I noticed something. At the very end of Willow, they put up a book and it says Volume 1, and then right next to it is Volume 2 and Volume 3. And I'm wondering if that's what we can expect. I'm wondering if the Disney Plus template is going to be having 3 seasons for everything. And I don't expect Bad Batch to last much longer before the story changes. I think it's going to go bad very quickly, in my opinion. It's already kind of getting a little whiff of that.
Yeah. So there's some stuff coming here at the end of the season. So I know some folks who have watched all the screeners, the 14 episodes, right? So we have 11, 12, 13, and 14 still coming that the folks I've talked to have seen. And from what they've described in those 4, I can deduce what's going to happen in the 5th episode, because the title on the 5th episode is called The Summit, and that's episode 15, and then episode 16 is Plan 99. So I know what's coming up through 14 in a broad story arc. I don't know the specifics, episode to episode, what exact. I haven't seen it, but I do kind of know where the story is going, and from what I know is happening, and I think we're going to talk about some of this later, so I'm not going to mention it now. Big changes. There's a major event coming that I think is coming, that's going to lead us down the road more into Heir of the Empire.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
what do you mean by that?
Well, Heir to the Empire, Timothy Zahn's original Thrawn trilogy, told the story of Thrawn, Admiral Thrawn, and we have seen, now that's all been relegated to legends, right? None of that is canon. But if you go through there and you look how much of Heir to the Empire has been adapted into canon. For one, Thrawn, right? Thrawn is a canon figure. The second is one of the folks that was prominent in the Heir to the Empire trilogy was that gray guy that was an assassin that was with him. And he shows up in Rebels. I'm trying to remember his name.
I think I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name, though.
Yeah. I'll have to Google it here real quick. But gray assassin. It starts with an R. They're Nogri. Rook. R-U-K-H. Rook.
Oh, yes.
Rook was a central character in Heir to the Empire. And just, if you haven't read, if folks watching haven't read Heir to the Empire, Rook is a gray assassin guy who rules like silently, deadly, right? And in the end, Rook kills Thrawn. for betraying the Nogri people. So Rook assassinates Thrawn, and Thrawn doesn't see it coming, and he kind of congratulates him on being so clever.
Really?
And in Rebels, Rook dies. So it's not the same story, but they borrowed the same character. They even named him Rook. and we also saw Thrawn. In Bad Batch Season 1, one of the major parts of Heir to the Empire was Mount Tantus. We end Empire, or we end Bad Batch Season 1 with a post-credit scene of Mount Tantus. And that was a major cloning facility for the Empire. And we know that we saw Nala Se taken there for part of the cloning program, and some of the people there had the same patch on it that we saw in Mandalorian from Dr. Pershing.
Yeah.
Same patch.
Oh,
So
no. I think
we borrowed Mount Tantus. We've taken Rook. We've taken Thrawn. We then have another element of Heir to the Empire that involves the Lost Fleet, the Lost Katana Fleet.
right.
Well, Thrawn's Ninth Fleet is taken by the Purgle away, and they're lost. Thrawn's Ninth Fleet is the Katana Fleet, the Lost Katana Fleet. It's the same concept. It's not the Katana Fleet, right? It's the Ninth Fleet,
Right.
but it's the same concept that we have from.
Well, we're going to go
There.
into the Katana fleet a lot here, but I'm wondering, I was very unclear on what you thought about this, because you're saying, okay, so the Katana fleet was actually rumored to be in Rise of Skywalker when they all come out of Exegol, right? A lot of people
Right.
thought that was what it was going to be.
Right.
And so I'd never considered that. I thought that Thrawn's fleet that was exiled by the Purgles were going to take him to the Katana fleet, but you're saying that you suppose that is the Katana fleet.
It could be. Yeah, I have been thinking that they were going to be taken to the Katana Fleet as well. And I think that still could happen. But in talking with some friends and going through it, specifically like Jason Ward
Yeah.
and Star Wars Meg and other friends, they're like, the Purgle didn't just take Thrawn's ship.
Right.
They took his entire fleet.
So what is the
I was like,
timeline
oh.
of that? Like when does the fleet get
later.
lost compared to when it was found?
Yeah, so what we see, so this is great. Oh, this is so good. So, so what we have are elements from Heir to the Empire being lifted and taken all out of context, right? Like Rook is completely out of context. Mount Tantus in the Bad Batch is happening before the original trilogy, right? It's right after the prequel trilogy. But Mount Tantus in Heir to the Empire happens after the Return of the Jedi. So like you've got timeline stuff, everything's all mixed up, but they're
Right.
taking concepts.
So
Another big concept. Go ahead.
Okay, so the idea of the rebels when the Ninth Fleet is lost compared to where we are now, as far as when Ahsoka's coming out on the timeline.
Hasn't happened yet.
So right, but we're like, so the what's the span between Rebels and Mando?
A long time.
Like 15 years or something, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And so they've been gone for a long time, which is what the Katana Fleet was, right?
Right.
They were lost for a long time.
Right.
And another major element, and we could tie this back to Bad Batch, another major element of Heir to the Empire is at the end of Heir to the Empire, there's like different storylines going on. But the one at Mount Tantus specifically, we get Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade, and they go to, and we end up with Han Solo and a bunch of other folks. They all kind of converge on Mount Tantus, and there's a battle that takes place there with Joruus Cyberioth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they destroy Mount Tantus, essentially. The end of Bad Batch season 1 or season 2 could put us there.
Right.
Different people. The Bad Batch. You're not going to have Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade, but you're going to have
Wow.
the Bad Batch
Wow.
going
wow.
to right?
That's
I think is
exciting,
going
dude.
to, right? Right? I think, and this is, I don't know this for sure, but I think the Bad Batch are going to arrive at Mount Tantus, and we're going to see that, the end of Heir to the Empire and Mount Tantus happen at the end of Bad Batch and Mount Tantus.
Okay, so this
I think
brings up
that's
some
what's
other
gonna
stuff.
happen.
But first off, Star Wars Fits in the chat was like, what about in Rogue One when we read the file called Mark Omega? Could this be a connection to Omega in the Bad Batch? I think Omega is a mark. I think the Empire, we definitely know that the Empire is going to figure out who Omega is and go after her somehow in one shape or another, where it have to be with cloning or using her to train. I have no idea, but something like that's going to happen. I think for sure. And this brings up another good, I love the video that we're showing right now, because it's almost like the A-Team in Predator being coached by the Predator. But this is the thing, though. I think that everybody can smell a betrayal from Sid coming. Everybody knows that the tension is there and that that's going to happen, and that one of the main hypotheses of Meta Egg is this whole idea that Omega represents like Snow White, right? And that it's because of that armor, and it's because all of the clones, the Bad Batch being this eclectic group of clones, is like the dwarfs, right, from Snow White. And Sid would be like the evil stepmother who portrays her, right? Like there's a relation going on here, and I think that's what we're going to get. Like, I feel like Sid's going, because even the name Bad Batch, think of it like this: one bad apple ruins the whole damn bunch, right? Or the whole damn batch. One bad apple ruins the whole batch. As far as like Omega being a stormtrooper who is taught the difference between right and wrong, and ruins the whole batch of clones that are working for the Empire. You get what I'm saying? To start a clone uprising or whatever. And I think that you got Hunter, Wrecker, Echo, Crosshair, and Tech, or Hunter, Wrecker, Boba, Rex, Echo, Crosshair, and Tech, or give or take, man. They're friggin' Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, man. I also want to point out that Rhea Perlman, if I say her name right there, who does the voiceover for Sid, has been popping up in a lot of other movies. I just saw her on Netflix on You People recently. She plays Jonah Hill's grandmother, I think. But it kind of makes me feel like the distance between Bad Batch and where we are in the Mando universe makes me think that I think she's going to play Sid in live action. And I think Wanda Sykes is too going to play her character, because she's so young. Look how old Wanda Sykes is in real life compared to what her character is in Bad Batch. It's the same difference as age as far as like Ming Mao Wen's version of Fennec Shan compared to what she looks like in Bad Batch. So I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's going to be some betrayal by Sid. I really do think that Omega is going to go to sleep. And I bet you it's going to be in that Jurassic Park Ember stuff from what was that, Book of Boba? Was that in the Book of Boba?
No, Kenobi.
That was in Kenobi. Right, that was in Kenobi. I think that they have Jedi, and I think that they're storing DNA to extract to make clones out of. And I bet you they're taking a whole bunch of people, because in Andor, when you get what's his name, Andy Serkis's character, when he comes up on the PA system and he's like, "You must," it's Snoke's voice, and I bet you, like, because that character is still alive, I bet you that they're going to put him in Amber 2, and I bet you he's like, all of these people are going to be like some conglomerate of like clone that's going to end up being Snook. I'm telling you, they're going to take. Come on,
let me tell you this.
Don't break my heart on this one.
The next episode of Bad Batch is going to feed your cloning hunger. It's going to give you some food. It's going to let you see some stuff. These next two episodes are going to explore that cloning facility on Mount Tantus. And you're going to learn some things of what's going on there. And you're not wrong in saying that there are lots of different genetic experiments going on in that place. It's not all the same. Again, it's not like when you go back to Attack of the Clones and you've got the facility like millions of copies of the same thing.
Right.
You got lots of different things that are getting experimented on.
But it
And we're
implies
gonna
cloning because it's a direct reference to Jurassic Park. There's no way it's not. It even came out when like that movie came out, and they've been doing that a lot, where their references are lining up to other IP as it comes out, like Dune and stuff of that nature. So I'm thinking, bro. I'm thinking they're like telegraphing this shit to us.